Hello everyone, you're on the Manhwa Vibes channel. Are you ready? Let's go. This country is doomed after it began attacking and conquering other nations one by one. Announcing the unification of the Delphi's empire, the last country of Sofan also fell to the invasion, unable to hold back the onslaught of troops and manpower. The ruling king was killed immediately and by the Delphi's empire's most trusted advisor, a man whose name was rumored to be the reincarnation of evil. The ruling elite during the war were demoted to commoners, which caused them to become ordinary people who had the needs of ordinary mortals such as work or, for example, the same food. The first and only daughter of House Ephron, Laylin Ephron, also came from a noble family, but replacing her father's position as head of the house was quick and easy. Laylin was determined to keep her family's legacy. However, to keep her legacy, she needed to be married. Such were the rules in this empire. The princess rustlingly unfolded a scroll where a decree was written: surrender or die. All nobles must come to the imperial palace and swear allegiance to the Delphi's empire. What should she do? She thought these rules were very stupid and incorrect, because what if the empire wanted to match all the girls? How silly. But be that as it may, the princess simply has no choice, because if she does not inherit the title, their fortune and position in society will disappear as if they did not exist at all. But she does not think long, came up with a plan, which, as she herself believes, should work like clockwork. All she needs to do is to sign a marriage contract. The main thing is to find a suitable candidate for the role of her spouse, for the search for which she has only a year. I wonder if she'll make the deadline. It was a quiet night, when it was serene outside and only crickets could be heard. Sitting in his room, smoking a cigar and relaxing about something, there was a knock on the guy's door. Who could it be? It was a servant, but who was that standing next to him? A mysterious person, whom the servant himself had announced as a guest, that suddenly came to the man's door. This caused the guy himself to be perplexed. He began to ask himself questions in his head. Who could it be? After all, the time is already quite late and he was clearly not expecting anyone at such a time. Strange all this. When the door opened with a long creak that resounded throughout the room, a dark figure in a cloak entered the doorway, immediately asking a question to the guy whose peace was disturbed. Are you the leader of the Guild of Nine Knights? The guy immediately asked the mysterious person, what do you want? The guy didn't seem to be interested in asking about the person himself just yet, though at a time like this, either friend or foe could come. The mysterious person was a girl, or to be more precise, it was the Princess Laylin, who immediately gave out a phrase that would put many people in a stupor: find me a husband. It seems it's hard to find a husband during the day, let alone at night. The girl came to the Ninth Night Guild to find a suitable husband for a marriage contract. It was there that she first met the man who sat in front of her. Most likely the princess had no contact with this guild before, but she knows about it. Crying into her handkerchief, sobbing loudly and realizing that she should have taken action right away, the woman through her tears tells the girl in front of her that she should have married her off back then. Without a doubt, this is Princess Laylin we're talking about. The princess immediately started to cross her mother because, thinking back to the past, her father had already made a surprise marriage announcement when Laylin herself was only 15 years old. She remembers standing in a hall that glittered with gold and was surrounded by nobles. Laylin and Stan were to marry, which was not to the princess's liking, for she did not want a marriage. And who would like a loveless marriage? No way. Never. The princess remembered how she had replied to her father, after which she had run away from the banquet hall and wouldn't speak or see her father for a couple of months because of her resentment. After that, Laylin hasn't heard from Stan since she left home. But suddenly we learn the details of the marriage because it comes out that her father wanted to marry her own cousin to her. This is completely unacceptable to Laylin, for as she said herself, he's family. What princess in her right mind would marry her cousin? Laylin correctly pointed out. Calming her mother down, she said that she had done the right thing not only because it was a relative, but also because if she had married her cousin then, she would have been a commoner all her life. But really, could that marriage have been for the best? The princess is the count's daughter. She is 21 years old and the only daughter in the family. By some miracle, the princess managed to keep the memories of her past life when she was still an ordinary girl of 21 years old, as she went to college in a country where most deaths are related to car accidents. The girl died from an accident. But she was lucky and was born into a wealthy family. Oh, was she lucky though? After all, her heritage now stands on the edge of a precipice, and one wrong move could make her once again the commoner she was in her past life. So many problems have fallen on the poor girl's shoulders. By the way, should she count her age on top of her old age, or is it just nonsense? Either way, she should now quickly solve the problem of her inheritance, because the country has been invaded and her father has been stripped of his title, and the only way to keep her financial status is to get married. Time is running out. The princess needs to find a husband, the sooner the better, so she is very determined. The girl kindly cares for her mother and tells her to go for a rest and that she will soon join her. The princess is very optimistic, considering that all single men are old men. She wants a handsome husband in addition to preserving her heritage. How thoughtful. But will she be able to find one? Perhaps if she searches all over the empire. There is a knock on the door, and after a short pause, a nod of approval is heard, inviting her to enter. A guy enters the room with an urgent request to the mistress. The guy who entered the room, it was Sir Gelot Hayden, the vice-captain of the Ephron family knights. It's worth noting that the guy is dressed like a needle, with good looks, talented and well-mannered, very loyal, the perfect candidate for prince. However, there is one but. The thing is that he is already engaged to the princess's personal maid Sarah. Here you can really say that their marriage is for love, because they are in love with each other. Back to the question, why did he come to the lady? The knight said that perhaps it would offend her, to which the princess invited him to sit down and drink tea, because the conversation may not be short. To which the lad hastily declined the hot drink. The princess is already accustomed to him, for as she says, he was always so reserved. By the way, the knight himself, although ideal by the standards of many girls, but he was not to her taste, so to humiliate herself and ask the knight to take her as a wife was not in the personal interests of the girl. The guy carefully puts a black folder with some documents on the table, which raises only new questions from the princess. The knight hands over the folder and says that the princess should hurry up with her decision, and he sincerely hopes that he has not offended the princess and that she will think it over carefully. I wonder what's in those documents. The princess is puzzled. Does the knight want to make her a proposal? So that's why he's so nervous and literally can't find his place. That would certainly explain everything. She'd be happy to say yes, even though he's not her type, but he's proposing to her, isn't he? But no, she can't betray her maid, who has become like a sister to her during her time as a servant. Please consider this nobleman from the empire for your marriage, said the knight, to which he heard a sharp answer from the princess, not even listening to him to the end. I can't, shouted the girl. But wait, what did he just say, nobleman from the empire? The girl had already thought that he wanted to offer her his candidacy, but fortunately or unfortunately it turned out not to be the case. The guy hastily thought that she had refused his request to marry the nobles whose name was in those very documents. The princess is seriously excited, because in front of her a whole list of candidates, nobles of the empire, all as she wanted, not even had to look for, everything came to her. The prince was about to leave, but the princess asked him if there were any good candidates, because she doesn't know about any noblemen from the empire. They are dark horses for her. Can she afford to screen out all the candidates just because of the lack of information about them? In any case, there are no suitable candidates to inherit the title in the kingdom. Obviously, it's the emperor's trick of marrying off all the ladies to nobles from the empire. But the knight clarified that perhaps she could find information about them in the Guild of Nine. What is known about this guild is that it is the best information guild in the entire continent. The rumors say that the Guild of Nine Knights sells information for money not only within the empire but also outside of it. Some of the information they possess can even destroy the empire itself if the knowledge is transferred to the wrong hands or the wrong kingdom. This business of selling information was the reason for the outbreak of the war, in which, by order of the emperor himself, all the members of the Guild of Nine Knights were killed. Doubting the knight's words, the princess inquisitively interrogated, "Does the guild still exist?" "They are rumored to be enemies of the empire." There are more and more questions and fewer answers. But recently, the emperor gave permission for the guild to be rebuilt. They set up headquarters in the capital last month. So the guild has only relatively recently started to take care of things. Checking the reliability of the guild, the knight asked them about the princess herself, and it should be noted that he heard some very impressive information, thus he was convinced that the guild really knows its business and they are not crooks. After saying all this to the princess, the knight stared at the lady inquisitively. Why is he looking at her like that? The princess herself is puzzled. What on earth did he find out about her in that guild? Maybe some of her special secrets. I wonder if the princess even has many skeletons in her closet. Speaking of the princess, the knight said that buying information about her was the right thing to do, because once he bought her, the guild wouldn't sell that information to anyone else. Thus, the knight was convinced of its authenticity, but he said that he had not read everything written about her in detail. But shouldn't he have read it in detail, because that was the only way he could be sure that the information was true? After the princess asked him this question, he decided to hurriedly leave the room, blushing slightly. Oh, could it be that he had read everything? Quickly leaving the princess' chambers, the blushing knight only shouts in her wake, "I'm sorry, ma'am. Please look at them." Without turning to face her, he leaves. What's wrong with this guy? The princess wondered the same thing, then opened the folder with information about herself and realized everything. There was everything there was to know about her: her height, weight, size of breasts, and even her cycle. Now I see why the guy was blushing so much and feeling awkward. In general, the empire is quite strange with its customs. Here husbands have mistresses and it is considered quite normal, at least among men, but what is it like for girls? Knowing that their husbands are now with their mistresses and not with them, one can only guess. It's quite expected that such an attitude is foreign to the princess. Besides, to be honest, the princess had no relationships at all. It is not clear whether it was only in this life or in the past life as well, but the fact is the fact. And then it hit her. A fake marriage. If the princess will marry a fake marriage, then everything that will do her husband, she will not touch her, whether he dances sambo or do sambo. She'll have to meet with the guild leader tomorrow. Sobbing all over the room, literally hiccuping from crying, the maid tells the princess to take care of the knight Hayden and that he would live a happy life with her. Apparently she too is aware that the princess is looking for a suitor and has suggested that her husband, being a perfect not only for her but for the princess as well, might marry Leyland. What are you talking about? Making high-five eyes and not understanding what she meant, the princess asked the maid. Oh, is the princess pretending to pretend like she doesn't know what the matter is? Sir Hayden said that I will be the only one he will love even if they can't be together, said the maid as she continued to sob and wipe away the tears that were hailing from her innocent eyes. If the lady does not find a husband, she will have to marry Sir Hayden, the maid added, tears welling up in her eyes. The princess herself froze in bewilderment and raising her eyebrows higher and higher, she did not understand what was going on. Oh, that night, why does everyone think that the princess cannot find a husband? She is young, beautiful, quite intelligent, she has every chance. The coachman pulls the carriage, thus stopping the horses, and then obediently waits for the princess to get into the carriage. Quickly clacking her heels and shuffling her slender but graceful feet, the princess runs to the carriage and gets into it, where the knight Hayden is already waiting inside. She has a year to find a worthy candidate, and that seems like plenty of time to preserve her family's status. Worried about his mistress, the knight tells her that it would be safer for him to go to the Guild of Nine himself and find out all the information about the nobles of the empire. But as the princess correctly points out, she needs a husband, and therefore she herself should find out everything about all the candidates. Yes, it would be strange if a knight came to the guild and began to ask about the husbands of bachelors. To tell Knight Hayden that the marriage is fictitious, the princess was ashamed, because in this country, divorce was considered an almost impossible task. So the princess simply turned her head to the window without going into details. When she arrived late at night, the princess looked around. The street was dark. The only light was from the moon and the lanterns. She saw a large 2-story house in front of her. So this is what the abode of the Nine Knights Guild looks like, the princess thought after looking around the area. Walking up to the man who was standing at the front door, the princess said, "I would like to meet the head of the guild," to which the man replied dryly, "All right," then pulled the chain that led to a small bell. After the bell rang, the door opened and from behind the man appeared a young boy, a servant, who said he would escort them inside. Sitting in his room, in absolute solitude, alone with himself, hearing only the crickets singing outside the window, the boy reaches for his cigar case to smoke and brighten his loneliness with a couple of puffs, but alas, all cigars are out. After that, the guy with a sad face lowered his head, sits on the edge of the bed, only repeating to himself how much it pisses him off, because there is nothing worse than the lack of a way to brighten his leisure time with the help of cigars so familiar to him. It seems as if every rustle, every word, every movement, all this irritates the guy, so pressing his hands to his ears, he tries to drown out all these sounds that he hears. Whether this is due to the absence of cigars, or whether there is some other reason for this irritability is unknown. The guy seems to be suffering from insomnia, and the medication he's holding in his hand doesn't seem to be helping him anymore, which is why he's so irritable. The princess and the knight walk up the stairs, heading towards the guild head's room, which a servant kindly leads them to. "You have a guest," the servant says, knocking lightly on the door before doing so. Judging by the footsteps, there were 2 of them, one male guest, and with him a puppy. Thought the boy, listening to the footsteps and trying to determine who was coming at such a late hour, while lighting a cigar. Of course, it was to be assumed that a cigar smoker must have a stash of cigars. Taking a deep puff from the cigar, the guy deeply inhales the tobacco he needs for relaxation, and after he exhales, he asks with irritability in raised tones, "Why the hell did someone come to me at this hour?" The princess, startled, jumped on the spot at these words, noting that he could have said it quietly. After that, the guy behind the door still gave permission to enter. Following the princess, the knight was about to enter, but he was immediately stopped by a servant, saying that only customers could enter the head. It could be dangerous, leaving the princess alone with a man who is so annoyed by everything, you want to believe that he won't hurt her. The knight wanted to stop the lady herself as well, as he didn't want to let her go alone, and if he can't go in there, she won't go in there herself. However, the princess has no courage, though she looks fragile and delicate, which seems as if any breeze could break her. She still goes inside, reassuring the knight that she will be back soon. Once inside, the princess saw the guy sitting in a chair at the table, taking puff after puff, making him smoke up the entire room. The girl smelled lavender, but as if with some kind of impurity. The room was too dark to make out the face of the man sitting across from her. All she could see were the pulsing embers that flickered in the darkness. The princess was even a little frightened as soon as the guy started to move his hand, which made the embers on the cigar puff up and glow brighter, literally shining in the darkness. Soon the silence was interrupted by the guy sitting across from her, asking her, "What do you want?" The princess didn't even immediately realize that she was the head of the guild, which made her have doubts and asked herself, "Is this really the guild master?" But his seemingly coarse or even threatening voice seemed sweet and deep to the princess, while sounding manly and imposing at the same time. She assumed that the boy was of equal status with her, and perhaps even of age. Interesting statement, so the princess had already found one candidate. Is he really the head of the guild or just an ordinary employee? The princess could only ask herself. But this was not the time for such silly questions. After all, if she was in front of the head, she should ask him questions. But before that, she would have to sit down, but it was difficult to find a chair by feel, so she asked the guy to turn on the light. The guy reacted with a look of shock on his face, but that was just a first impression. "Well, it won't be hard to do," smilingly replied the guy after hearing her ringing girlish voice, which made him smile. And as at the snap of fingers, or to be more precise, literally at the snap of fingers, the nearby oil lamp lights up, from the light of which the guy closes his eyes, having got used to the darkness. Well, this arrangement suits the princess, because the key to good communication is when you see the face of your interlocutor. When the girl finally got a good look at the guy's face, she concluded that although the guy had disheveled hair, he was very attractive. He had a nice straight chin and beautiful eyes. Had she fallen in love with him? But what is it? She's going to forget why she's here. She must pull herself together, the princess thought, and return to why she had come here. The man points to a nearby chair for the princess to sit down on. But what kind of chair is it? Without cushions, uncomfortable. There's no comfort in socializing like that. The girl doesn't like it, which she makes clear with her displeased expression. Exactly, there is something in the distance that seemed more comfortable to the princess than a chair, and the princess went there, because it is certainly more comfortable than at the place that indicated the guy. The girl sat down and looked innocently into the guy's face. Now she was ready to talk. The guy himself couldn't help but make a remark to her. "Aren't you taught not to sit on the beds of strange men?" "What does he mean by that? Is this a bed?" the princess asked in surprise, looking around seeing that it fit more like an overturned closet than a bed. The guy is not at all annoyed by her behavior, but rather amused. She is clearly more interesting than all those aristocrats who came to see him before. He seems to like her too, at least she doesn't piss him off like any of the sounds that made him nervous. The princess only asks the guy in surprise, "How can you sleep on a bed like that?" The guy himself starts to wonder, assuming that's why her cousin and fiancé Stan Efren ran away from her. He apparently doesn't know the details, since it was she who ran away, not her fiancé. "So, what's your request?" the guy asked her interestedly. She asked him to put out his cigarette first of all. The poor girl probably couldn't breathe in the smoke-filled room anymore. "It's not a cigarette," the guy answered her. And indeed it is, but how would the princess know all kinds of tobacco products? She only remembers that in her world, which she remembers from her past life, people smoke cigarettes, and the smoke smells different from cigarette smoke, so the girl assumes he's holding a cigar. Could he be smoking a hallucinogen? The princess immediately began to scold her interlocutor for this. I wonder, if he had known that the princess was coming to him, would he have kept from smoking? The guy answered and reassured the girl that it was not a hallucinogen, but a sedative, because he had insomnia because of a hard day's work. Anyway, she had come for business, and it was good that she remembered it in time, asking, "So how much do you charge for your services?" The tension level seems to have risen to a fever pitch. Or did someone raise it? Smiling, the guy seems to be veiledly flirting with the girl, toying with her and saying, "Since this is your first time here, the answers to the first 3 questions will be discounted." I wonder if he's teasing her or if those questions of hers really counted towards the fee. The princess only interjects, "What?" in bewilderment. She jumps up from her seat and, shaking her delicate hands, begins as if to justify herself, asking, "When did I ever ask you a question?" Apparently the girl is caught in his web and he's playing with her. Money, he obviously means that all his answers aren't free. Sitting back down, the guy calmly and leisurely repeated the phrase to her time after time. "Okay," sitting back down on the spot called the bed, the girl asked, "Okay, I just need to pay, right? How much?" The girl is determined, and since she came here, she doesn't intend to leave without answers. The guy stated to her that considering she showed up here at such a late hour, she owes 3 gold coins. Yeah, you can't really call it a broad daylight robbery, it's a nighttime robbery. Not a guild, but some kind of money extortionists. The princess declared, puffing up her cheeks angrily. Although, maybe if she smiled at him, he would give her a discount. The guy wasn't going to answer her questions until she paid him 3 gold pieces. He characteristically flexed his finger as if beckoning her to pay him as soon as possible. When the girl gets nervous, she throws coins at the guy, shouting, "Damn you, take your money back." Who'd have thought the princess would be so easily pissed off? Or is that just how she reacts to a handsome guy? With a deft movement of his hands, the guy skillfully catches all the coins, remaining still as calm and quiet while continuing to smoke a cigar with a sedative. The girl is outraged by such behavior on the part of the guy, and she, as if with an attack, asks him, "If you know that I am an aristocrat, why do you behave like this with me?" Adding that in the empire status and title plays a great importance. After this phrase, the guy's face was surprised at first, but then he laughed without restraint, telling her that at first he took her for a simple spoiled aristocrat's daughter, of which he had met quite a few. When people reported her to him, he didn't even believe it was really Leyland Ephron at first and questioned them if they were mistaken. "Maybe not me," the girl said, watching the guy's reaction. But the latter only confirmed that his guys weren't mistaken about the information, and it was indeed the princess in front of him. From the outside, their argument looked more like a young couple arguing. What if they really fell in love with each other but denied it for now? Hearing that the guild leader had confirmed that he was indeed Leyland Ephron, the girl stood up proudly and formally introduced herself, thinking that the guy would apologize for his behavior. But it seems that this only made the guy laugh even more, and he held his stomach with both hands and laughed, enjoying what was happening. Of course, the girl let him get away with it, thinking that it was the hallucinogen, and the guy is just not quite inadequate now. If he knows her identity, then he must know the purpose of her visit, the girl said loudly. The guy confirmed that he knew her purpose, because she had come here looking for a marriage candidate to help her maintain her status. And he also remarked casually that when the girl spoke to him normally and without formality, she was much more interesting and lovable that way. "Of all the girls I've met, you're the first to remind me of a rude street kid," the guy said to the girl, which caused her to look genuinely perplexed and annoyed. I don't know if it was an offense, or if he likes them on the contrary. It is possible that she is the first girl who was so openly rude to the head of the guild, and at the same time unlike him. Returning to the main point, the guy asked the girl what kind of man she was looking for. Obviously he should be an aristocrat, but what about other preferences? He asked interestedly, not taking his eyes off the girl herself. "An aristocrat in his early 20s with the title of baron or below," the girl answered as if she had already prepared answers to such questions in advance. Whereupon the boy asked again, "Is that all?" After answering, the girl said that it would be easier for her if he just gave her a list and she could choose, or at least name a couple of suitable ones in his memory. Not thinking long, the guy said, "Is 200 enough?" Not knowing if it was a joke or really that many aristocratic bachelors. But, very subtly teasing the girl, he said that it would be easier for her to manage teenagers than grown-up guys. Thus he caused an ambiguous reaction of the princess, because she did not understand the joke of the guy and began to resent. Allegedly he thinks she is some pedophile who would fall for teenagers. Therefore, the princess simply said let him be just about 20. The princess stated that she has no interest in guys her age or younger, so candidates who are under 20 are not desirable. The princess is right, she's 42 now if you add up the ages of both her lives, so of course she's not interested in guys younger than her. The guy said that it would be difficult to find someone worthy at 20 because she probably wants the candidate to be a virgin. The princess agrees that it is important, but in her position it does not matter because the husband will be only a year. The princess now began to pile up questions from the head himself, wondering why she needs a candidate with a title lower than baron, because such are usually used by high-ranking aristocrats. The answer is simple. She doesn't have much time to go around a man with a high title because she doesn't need power higher than she has. For her, the main thing is to preserve her heritage. The princess also said that she had heard that the empire gave out titles to soldiers who participated in the war, specifying is it true. Since she had brought it up, the guy wanted to continue talking but demanded another 3 gold coins for answers. Accepting the situation, the princess silently gave him another 3 gold coins while saying stingy. After that, she added that she wanted a husband who wasn't greedy for power and didn't want to have children right now. With a heavy sigh, the guy asked the girl that she needed to get married within a month, which made it unlikely that a man with a title lower than a baron and not interested in power, as well as not wanting to have children, would agree to it. The girl is not embarrassed if her fictitious husband will have greed for money. In addition, she does not mind if he will have a mistress on the side. Money and women play a special role in such a matter, said the guy. To which the girl agreed that she would find someone, at least according to her needs, because the guild is obliged to do so. After that, the guy cheered up, slightly stretching his arms, affirmatively replied to the princess, "Okay, I understand." Clarifying his question one last time, he asked the girl, "So still, what kind of man do you need, greedy for money and women, or a cute boy? Which option suits you better?" Interlocking his fingers, he looked at the princess. The girl seriously thought about it, and assumed that good guys help and behave more like cute animals. But it's not enough for her just good guy, she also cares about the appearance of the guy, because it plays a big role. She examined the guy in front of her even more carefully, and once again confirmed that he is very handsome. He has a nice appearance, big arms, broad shoulders, long legs. In general, he has a well-developed physique and good looks. Completely bemused, the princess replied, "A nice guy is a hot guy. She wants a handsome guy, because she is a countess, she will do all the work anyway, so why can't she just have a handsome husband?" And this role is perfectly suited to the guy sitting opposite her, leisurely smoking a cigar and waiting for her to answer his question. All this time, the knight stood motionless at the door, obediently waiting for his mistress, and in case of anything, being ready to come to the aid of his princess as quickly as possible. In this regard, he did not wait for her in the hall, comfortably seated and simply killing time during her conversation with the head. So, the guy asked the princess that it turns out that she considers only a handsome man as an ideal candidate. And on this role, the head was not even ashamed to try on himself, because he clearly had no complexes. But the princess said to herself that on the beauty, all his virtues and ends. And everything started so well. He interrogated the girl, and that's all. To which the princess still added her little list of pluses, which should have her future husband, adding more and such requirements as black hair, a growth of not less than 180 centimeters, strong physique, that he did not smoke, did not drink and did not gamble. Oh, and lastly, he must be good with a sword. She could have listed the items for a long time if she hadn't been stopped by the head of the guild, asking the princess, "Countess, you're not serious, are you?" To which she simply replied that no, just a man to take on the role of husband for a year was enough for her. Holding the smoldering cigar between his fingers, the guy said that basically she just needed a prenup, and simply clarified, "How much are you offering? What are the terms of the contract?" The princess said that firstly, she would pay so much that her husband could live in comfort and need nothing for the duration of the marriage, and secondly, after the deal was finalized, he could live his life without needing anything else, as if he had been born with a golden spoon in his mouth. He asked the girl, "What about you?" To which she replied that she would also fulfill the duties of a wife. The guy proceeded to question the girl about this contract, asking why a year, to which he heard the reply that a woman can get the title of head of the family if she successfully marries. Definitely she is clever, since she had thought it all out. That was the conclusion the guild leader made, sitting in his chair, putting his hands on the railing and calmly looking at the girl. Imagining himself sitting on the throne, the guy thought, because in order to get the recognition of his title, it will be necessary to attend the royal banquet, which represents all the new heads of families. It will be held next month just. However, in order to get the title, it is necessary to present the heir, so the guy told the princess that her contract will end after she presents her heir at the royal banquet next year. The girl replied that she doesn't really want to get pregnant, so apparently she plans to adopt a child. The boy reminded the girl that she had promised to fulfill her duties as a wife. But as the girl replied, "We should behave like this only in public, so is it necessary?" And it's hard to argue with this answer, unless of course the girl is attracted to the head of the guild, and his interest is far from monetary. Anyway, the girl agreed to discuss all the details already after she meets the candidate. And the guy, putting out his cigar on the ashtray, says, "I want you to pack your things and go to the capital today. I'll meet you there." The girl had hoped to meet the candidates here, but she's just as happy with a different arrangement, saying she hopes to pick the perfect nobleman from those who will attend the ball. The head of the guild has some things to take care of, so she can go back. Then opening the door with the same long creak, the princess finds the knight, who had been standing almost abreast all this time waiting for her. The knight asks if the princess was able to sort everything out, to which she replies that everything went well. Truth be told, she still hopes the knight didn't hear her words about the perfect guy, or more specifically her phrase, "A good guy is a hot guy." "Call everyone here," the guild leader said, abruptly lowering his hand with the smoldering cigar between his fingers. After that, after a short period of time, 3 fellow servants enter his office. They stood nervously waiting for an order from their master. Taking a puff, the head leisurely looked at his servants, and while relaxedly exhaling, asked them, "Who wants to contract Leyland Ephron for a year?" The boys began whispering sharply amongst themselves. It was clear from their speech that such an offer was akin to winning the lottery. After all, they had no fortune or titles. They were just ordinary servants who were now being given a chance by their head. One of the guys said that no matter how much Mrs. Ephron offered for this deal, but a person of low status would hardly want to divorce her afterwards. Besides, she is not only rich but also one of the most beautiful girls of her country who never dared to leave her territory. She is also a lady of the Duchy of Tyrol and has been attending social gatherings since she was 12 years old. As they continued to report, the boys added that they already had information about all the low-status aristocrats. It wouldn't take long to sift out the information, because people with black hair were rare. The head of the guild jumps up abruptly and heads for the exit, throwing off his wig as it turned out. And then it is recognized that the guild leader, as it turned out, wore a white wig over his black hair. Especially he surprises the guys standing at the door, who cannot take their eyes off the shock. Apparently this was the secret of the head, or one could say, a trump card up his sleeve. Approaching, the coachman abruptly stops the horses, pulling the harness. The characteristic neighing of the horses and the clattering of their hooves can be heard, signifying that the carriage has been served. Leyland is determined to go to the capital. From what her mother still hopes that maybe she will change her mind. After all, what if her father finds some other solution to preserve the legacy? The princess only replied that if she finds something, her mother will send her a letter. Her mother holds her daughter's hands tightly, not wanting to let her go to the capital alone. But everything is already decided. She calms her mother, telling her that everything will be fine, that she would trust her. Sitting in a carriage, the princess rides far away from the house where she has lived for 20 years. After the death of the king, the princess, a 21st century girl, became the new mistress of the land, but what influence she had in the land she did not know. All she knew was that she was able to compensate prisoners of war regardless of their status, so that the families would return home and know that the new lord would protect them. The princess sat in the carriage, thinking long and hard about herself, about her past, asking herself how she was able to become the person she was now. After all, in her past life, she had always relied only on her parents, counting on their help for a long time to come. She promised herself, whatever it took, to become more independent and self-reliant. After all, there were people who believed in her and depended on her. She must not let them down for anything. After the princess's carriage arrived at the place, a mysterious figure with black hair and red eyes appeared from around the corner. The sun was almost setting, and the sound of the river, over which a small arched bridge ran, could be heard. The princess was sitting in the carriage and looking out the window, thinking about the fact that it would take them quite a long time to get to the capital. Her attention was drawn to the soldiers of the empire, who inspect all the carriages, but why? Here her loyal knight came to the princess and reported to her the whole situation. As it turned out, the Lord in these parts raised a rebellion, and it has not yet had time to suppress. In this regard, the soldiers are inspecting all who pass, so that they do not bring anything dangerous. The other nobles who were also heading to the empire were accompanied by dozens of men, apparently for protection. The murmuring of the crowd was clearly audible. Everyone was talking about something different, sharing stories, gossiping, admiring the evening weather. The road was not close, so the silence could be maddening, listening only to the wind and the sound of the river. By the way, the company of the princess consisted of a small circle of people, which included Sir Knight Hayden, a tramp, Maid Annie, and the princess herself. Without her, even such company would be enough to brighten the loneliness, sharing funny stories with each other or just playing some games. The princess sensed something wrong and ordered everyone to move with the rest of the nobles together, keeping up with them. The knight fully agreed with the princess. Actually, the premonition cannot be underestimated, and his duty is the safety of the mistress. Considering that the rebellion has not been suppressed yet, it is a good idea, because together and more fun and safer in any case. Because of all the inspections by the imperial soldiers, the princess had been delayed quite a bit. But it seemed that she was not the only one who was late, and looking out the window, she saw a carriage that was traveling at full speed. Apparently someone wasn't just delayed, but late at all. Why are they suddenly in such a hurry? The princess asked the knight. Hayden answered that he didn't know, but it was better to keep up with the others, because it wasn't safe here, especially since a riot had broken out in these parts. What if there was something dangerous in that carriage that was traveling, or even weapons? After getting into the carriage with the princess, getting comfortable and making sure that everything was in order, the knight ordered the coachman, whose name was Chen, to speed up. The coachman deftly handling the horses, a couple of movements with straps made the horses gallop faster, clattering their hooves even more often. Sitting in the carriage, the princess became uncomfortable, as if she felt on herself a stranger's gaze, which did not break away from her, continued to follow her, like a hunter after the victim. Hopefully, the princess was just tired, because otherwise, she might be in danger. Suddenly I heard something flying very fast, as if the air was cut by something. It made the carriage shake very violently. But the carriage was not important, as long as Leyland was fine. Looking out the window, the princess was horrified to see the carriage wheel rolling. Everything was going so well, there was no sign of trouble, except for that incident with the stairs from the outside. Out of nowhere there was trouble. The knight abruptly slid the curtain at the window in the carriage. Looks like whoever caused all this commotion may well be looking for the princess. Has this innocent girl already crossed someone's path? He shows the princess with a gesture of his index finger at his lips that she should sit very quietly, even to breathe quietly. Suddenly the danger will pass. It is possible that someone just has a problem with the wheels of the carriage. The knight could go out and find out for himself, but then he would endanger the princess herself, literally exposing her to the enemy, if there is one. But the princess was not timid, and daring to get out of her carriage, she opened the door with a creak. Looking out, she first of all shouted out the name of the coachman, in case something had happened to him. A man in a black suit, with raven black hair and red eyes appeared before her gaze. The man held a bloody sword in his hand, which had as much blood on it as the guy himself. He was swinging the sword at her coachman, obviously wanting to kill him. Oh, who is this guy and what does he want? This guy's gaze was awe-inspiring and terrifying. A flame of determination burned in his eyes and meant that he was facing a man who could not be stopped. Uncontrollable rage and indomitability were intertwined on his face, creating an image of the fearless and indomitable. Swinging his sword, he thrust it right next to the coachman's head. He would have killed Chen, but that didn't seem to be the unknown man's main goal. The princess, in such a short period of time, tried to get a good look at her. Kill her. Would she really die again at the age of 20? Could he be after her, not her head? But we don't know this guy's purpose yet. She heard a rather familiar scent, the same one she had heard when she was talking to the guild leader. It's a sedative, right? Taking out the sword he had just stuck into the carriage planks, the guy jumped down from the coachman's seat and headed off in an unknown direction, holding a smoldering cigar and lighting it from time to time. Anyway, if the princess had a chance to escape, it was given to her right now. The princess quickly gets to the coachman and breaks him, but he literally collapses from fear. No wonder, who can keep calm when a sword is thrust in a few inches next to his head? Deciding to take matters into his own hands, Leyland grabs the straps that are fastened to the horses and clanking them makes the horses gallop quickly. It's unclear what's going through the girl's mind, but it's unlikely that she's thinking about the fact that she'd like to live to a ripe old age rather than die young. The carriage literally flies through the soullessly standing guy who a minute ago wanted to kill everyone or pretended to want to. But either way, he didn't want to catch up with the princess, maybe because he knows where she's going. Collide, this is definitely the crazy killer. It was only after the guy motionless only getting farther away from the princess as the speed of the carriage moved that the girl was able to relax a little. She only asked one question to herself: did this guy really create all of this? Sitting in an armchair, dressed in an expensive camisole, holding a quill in his hand, the man wondered why did he return to the capital. After all, the emperor has ordered the conquest of every kingdom on the continent in order to find out about the fragment of the star. There is an old Ephron tale passed down from generation to generation that talks about the star fragment. If we are to believe what is written in the tale, then this very fragment must be somewhere in the hills of the seashore in Ephron territory. Though it's not known for certain if that's the case. Could it be that they were already there? But these legends about the shard may only be legends. Would the day come when the empire would find out that the shard never really existed ever really? The man could only sit and ponder about it. Right now, the Ephron family is in a state of chaos as the kingdom has fallen at the feet of the empire. I wonder how that child is doing. The Duke of the Ephron family wondered to himself. With a knock on the door, a servant enters the room, reporting that the Duke is waiting for His Imperial Majesty. The Duke quickly got up from his chair and made his way towards His Majesty, not wanting to keep him waiting. He passed through the columns, which all as one only gave away the grandeur and wealth of the kingdom. A week after arriving in the capital, the princess, not yet fully recovered from the shock, began to prepare for the upcoming ball. She tried on different dresses, some went more, some less, some emphasized her figure, and some emphasized her wealth. The princess was very busy, so she managed to gradually forget about that terrible meeting. It was good that the empire's etiquette rules were very similar to those of the Ephron family's kingdom, so the preparation for the ball went very smoothly. Sitting at the same table, the knight and the princess were discussing matters concerning the Guild of Nine, as they had not contacted them in 11 days. It's worth noting that the princess looks like a rose flower in her red outfit, which is metaphorical, for the princess is also a prickly one for phrases. The knight, straining to answer the princess's questions, said that the candidates were on their way to the capital, and so they would just have to wait. Sir Hayden had sent Coachman Chen twice a day with an errand to the guild, but there was no news. The princess is excited that the ball will start in 3 days. She just can't find a place to go. In such a short period of time, it will be incredibly difficult to get an audience with the emperor. Knight Hayden says that it looks like the only option left to them is to sign a marriage contract right now. Apparently, there is no other way to do it, because the candidates are not even in the capital yet, and the ball will start in 3 days. The princess is sad and lowers her head. She hopes that they still have time, no matter how urgent it is. Otherwise, this whole trip was for nothing. Whether it's due to the pride of the people in the empire or something else, the empire has been experiencing conflicts both big and small. Because of this, the empire handles a huge number of complaints every day. Therefore, the knight told the princess that because of all these problems, even if she filled out the marriage contract now, it might not be considered soon, therefore it was worth hurrying. The princess is in a stupor because she has to make a decision about what to do now. The girl can't betray her maid, but she can't refuse the knight's offer either. She has too little time to think. I wonder what decision the princess will make. And so, sitting together at the table, their eyes synchronously fell on the marriage contract, which was lying on the table as still as the knight and the princess were sitting at the moment. Would she agree to marry this boy? Would the princess forego her preferences in favor of the most important thing, the preservation of her heritage? Knight Hayden grew up in front of the princess's eyes. She remembers him when he was 10 years old, how clumsy he was as a child, naive but still loyal. But the princess wasn't the only one who grew up with Knight Hayden. There was also a maid who seemed to be in love with him from that moment on. But one way or another, Knight Hayden grew up. He matured and became a serious man with a purpose, principles, and most importantly, the same unwavering loyalty to his mistress. It is the safety of the princess and her protection that instills in him courage and valor, helping him cast aside any fear. Resigned to the fact that it looks like there are no other candidates she will even have time to consider, she gravitates to that marriage contract. She regrets that she has no other choice. The knight only comforts her, saying that it's okay. If this is the only option, then even here, the knight is willing to serve for the good of his princess. She is sorry that there is no other choice. She will be forced to share the knight with his lover. But trying to comfort herself, she only repeated to herself that it was all for the sake of the territories and legacy. Swinging the seal, the princess is ready to leave a sign that, even if not the way she wanted, it is finished. But suddenly Chen, her coachman, bursts into the room and shouts from the doorstep that someone from the Guild of Nine Knights has come to see her. It seems that Chen's daily run to the guild was not left unattended, which cannot but be happy. The princess was only a couple inches away from signing the contract with the seal in her hand. It was as if she was waiting for some special moment, because of which there would be a chance to do everything the way she wanted. All that could be read on her face now was surprise and absent-mindedness. She heard a familiar scent, and distracted by it, she almost made a mistake that she would surely regret. Her hand came down automatically and she pressed the seal. But luckily, the guest who had come to see her didn't have time for her to do so and quickly put up a gloved hand. Without noticing it, she only looked distractedly at her guest and asked him, "And you?" Lighting a cigar, the man in the cape only said with a smile, "Our dear Countess is so impatient." Beyond any doubt, it was him. As the princess thought to herself, she was glad that he had accepted her proposal after all. Grasping the hilt of his sword, Hayden prepared to bear it, but he was stopped in time by the princess herself, saying that she knew the man, he was from the Guild of Nine Knights. The princess was angered by the man's words that she was supposedly impatient. She, with irritation on her face, asked him, "What do you mean impatient? Haven't I waited long enough?" Just then a large folder of documents falls on the table. The guy said that they had carefully selected the candidates so that later the countess would be satisfied. The princess immediately wondered with indignation how large the database of candidates was, if it took them a month and a half to organize it. She tells Knight Hayden that she would like to speak to the boy alone. To which the knight reacts cautiously, for there's little doubt what the man's motives are. He worries for the safety of the princess more than anything else, but orders are orders. The princess reassures Hayden, telling him that she knows the man and they will only talk, so there is no reason to worry. The knight then bows to the princess and leaves the room, closing the door behind him. After making sure the door is closed tightly, the princess opens the folder with the candidates' dossiers. She will need to review each candidate and choose the most suitable aristocrat for her interests. So, scrutinizing the documents, the first person she sees is a knight of the empire, 178 centimeters tall, one cat, no family. The princess didn't find this very interesting, as there is nothing special about this candidate. She leafed to the next page, carefully holding the sheet by the corners. A candidate fell to her attention, whose face was photographed from all angles. The princess took it as a dossier on bandits, but this guy, whose photos she can at least examine and draw conclusions from, is quite to her liking. She's surprised that this guy in the file looked pretty normal. She must have expected the worst. But anyway, she says she's ready to meet him. With her personality, any guy would look pretty ordinary to her. Sitting at the same table as the girl, not throwing off his cape and leisurely smoking a cigar, the man asks her, "Is he your choice?" The princess replies that no, she will still be looking. After all, she needs the most ideal one, the one that if not by all criteria, then at least by most of them will suit her. And then, as if by magic, the guy in the cape pulls out 3 more folders with candidates. But as he clarified, not for free, 10 gold for each candidate folder. The girl gave the gold to the guy and, already moving her fingers to herself, hints to the guy to give her a folder. Putting the folder with the next candidate on the table, the guy nudges her, from which she literally slides across the table right to the hands of the princess. Doesn't the guy's opinion count if she chooses them? This is the question the princess asks herself as she considers the next candidate. The guy answers her that rejecting her is out of the question. After all, indeed, she is a princess, rich and also very attractive. Who in their right mind would reject such a fortunate twist of fate? The princess asked why it was out of the question that she would be rejected. Then there was silence. The guy probably hoped that the girl would answer her own question, because the answer is obvious, isn't it? His opinion is not different from the other guys around her. He is not blind and sees that she is an incredibly attractive girl. Frowning, the girl continued to look in the folder, hoping to see there at last the one who will be worthy of her attention. The next candidate is a knight without connections, height 176 centimeters, age 29 years, a pedophile. Wait, what? The girl throws the folder on the table in disgust with the words "disgusting bastard." Obviously, the words were addressed to the candidate in the folder, not her conversation partner across the table. But how did such a candidate get there in the first place? She picks up the same folder again to see what this younger lover looks like, so that if the princess meets him, she will cut off his bells with scissors. He may be a pedophile, but as the princess said, he's quite handsome and looks way beyond his age. Maybe the picture's not his. And even if it was, it does not change the matter. She does not need such a guy, out of sight of such candidates. Here the princess asked a question head-on: are these sketches realistic? What if all the candidates aren't real? It seems that the guy did not expect such a question and fell into a stupor, not knowing what to say. If so, then all the photos of the candidates can be idealized as portraits of the king. Because of such speculations, the princess is now looking at other dossiers with great suspicion. But no matter the appearance, one cannot judge a book by its cover. After all, the princess will be bound to this person by a marriage contract, so one would not want him to be a terrible person. Sighing heavily, the princess picked up the 3rd folder. Opening the 3rd folder, the princess sees that the candidate is an ordinary guy, 28 years old, supporting 3 families. 3 families? He needs money to support 3 wives. Is that why he's in this file? Although if he is supporting them, then responsibility is in him, and that's a good thing. But those were just the princess arguments. The princess herself had already said that she didn't care if the guy she contracted with loved other women. However, it's one thing to love one woman and live with another, but to love 3 women at once and at the same time, as the princess said, lie to each of them that she is the only one. It smells like some kind of fraud. The princess sat pensive, thinking about it. It seems that the first candidate at least doesn't have any skeletons in her closet, although he doesn't have anything special either, but it might be the best option. However, it is also worth looking at the last, 4th option. The guy is still slowly smoking a cigar, slowly puts the folder on the table, passing it into the hands of the princess. The girl still hopes that at least the 4th one will be better than all the others. Unfolding the folder, she sees the following dossier. Baron, 26 years old, works as a civil servant, has his own business. It can be said that this candidate caught the princess's attention more than all the others combined. She does not care that even if he likes money, at least he is not involved in any scandals or affairs. Being a civil servant and having his own business shows that he knows how to make money. Especially when you consider that he is 192 centimeters tall and can cook, it attracted the attention of the princess even more. She thought that this candidate could very well have a restaurant business, like one guy from her past life who was a chef. What if this guy was going to be a chef too? What about this candidate's looks? Judging from past boyfriends, the princess has formed 3 pictures so far. The first one is too young, the second one is a hot bastard, and the third one is a responsible bastard. Perhaps, as the princess pointed out, number 4 is too perfect to be true, somewhere, but there must be a downside, and it's possible that the downside is in looks. Lighting a cigar and taking a couple of puffs, the lad exhaled the smoke and said, "Wouldn't it be better to choose Baron Surrey?" The princess, making an incomprehensible face, asked, "Surrey? It's about the first number." Just the princess misread the name on the folder, so she didn't immediately realize who it was about. The princess still can't get used to the Empire's font. The guy says that Baron Surrey is very respectful to his elders, so he will surely treat his wife with respect. As for the second number, it is Viscount Philot. He may be fond of children, but at least he does not bully them. But the princess immediately objected that to lure children with candy to do dirty deeds with them, it is a mockery of them. Besides, what reason has he for wanting a marriage contract? The lad says Viscount Philotas wants to use that contract money to found a large orphanage, which causes another wave of indignation from the princess, because isn't it all suspicious? Who would even give him the money to do something like that? Okay, what about number 4? The princess wonders what number 4's name is, because again, she can't read his name correctly on the file folder. She pronounces his name as Dilai. Collide? Due to unforeseen circumstances or the princess's not quite nimble fingers, she suddenly drops the folder, causing it to fall on the table. "Fuck. Motherfucker," bursts out from the princess, which surprises the guy, who seemed to be surprised by nothing. Such a princess, and so swears. When the folder fell on the table, its pages opened like birds unfolding their wings before flight. And here, in front of the princess, is a page with a picture of the 4th candidate. It's like some kind of mystery, no other way. Looking at the picture of the 4th candidate, the princess made only one conclusion, which she was quite satisfied with. In addition to all his previous pluses, he's hot. Who does he resemble so much? Being very excited and elated that she seemed to have found the perfect candidate, she slapped the folder on the table and put it down. Thinking to herself, the princess only tries to calm her fantasy. But immediately afterward, she picks up the folder again and unfolds it, again savoring the picture of the 4th candidate. She has the feeling that the photos are doctored and doctored to a certain extent, although she is not stopped by this apparently. Leafing through the photos further, a mask of shock and utmost amazement froze on the princess' face, as if she had seen a magic spell that turned the ordinary world into a wonderland. She had seen a picture that made this guy look like a resting god in the divine pantheon, as if a sea of stars in the night sky were worshipping his greatness. It was as if he was saying to her like that, "How dare you wake me up? Take responsibility for it." "Oh yes, I will take responsibility for it." Quite bewildered, the princess replied, in a voice excited and happy, seeming as if any fatigue she had before had passed. She asked the guy when she could meet this candidate, to which he replied that if she had already made up her mind, he could arrange a date within an hour. "Then I want to meet Baron Kelade." "Oh wait, with whom? This question was also asked to her by the guy himself. "Wait a minute, with who?" Again the princess misread the names. "Geez. With this guy." Showing the folder open on the page with pictures, the princess added, talking excitedly and almost jumping on the spot with eagerness to meet her a perfect candidate. "With Collide," her boyfriend corrected her. The princess wondered how he pronounced the name, because she thought it sounded different. The boy asks the princess, what is it, that it was the 4th candidate that she liked. After all, he was added at random without much thought. Here the princess became sad, because of course everything could not be so good. Why would such a perfect candidate want such a contract? The princess asked that this 4th candidate could not be chosen. The guy said that of course she could, but he wondered why she had chosen him. From such a question, the princess's mind was in a mess. She could not single out one thing that she liked most of all in him, because he was a perfect on all counts. The girl replied in a reserved and serious manner, "He seems like a nice guy and leaves a good impression." Yeah, well, it wouldn't be nice if she told him all her preferences. Chuckling contentedly, the guy took a couple puffs before asking the princess, "Didn't you say a nice guy is a hot guy?" This catches the princess off guard. She realizes that she told him too much during their last meeting. Blushing heavily, she couldn't even find something to answer him to such a question. But then she realized there was no escaping the truth, so she confessed to the guy, "That's right, he's handsome." "How handsome?" he asked her. He seemed to enjoy hearing such revelations about his preferred looks from the princess. The princess didn't hold back, answering as it were very. "Absolutely. Absolutely." The princess fell in love with the guy in the picture. What will happen to her when she meets him in person? The guy smiled at the girl and then thanked her for the compliment. That's right, the guy in the cape is the number 4 guy, no doubt about it. After that, he snatched the 4th folder from the princess's hands and said that if she had already decided on a candidate, he needed to destroy the information. Not wanting to part with the folder, the princess did not want to give it back. She even said that she was buying the folder. But the guy was unwavering. Since he decided that it is necessary to destroy the information, it will be so. The girl asked him to at least give her the last page of the folder. Reluctantly, she agrees to the guy's words, while whimpering and calling him a cheapskate. With a snap of his fingers, the guy creates a fire, after which the folder instantly bursts into flames and burns in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only burnt pieces of paper. The princess only looked at each charcoal that landed on the floor with sadness in her voice, saying goodbye to the work of art as she called it. The guy had asked to pay for 40 gold coins for those folders, since she had reviewed them all. Oh wait, before that she had only paid him with a promise. With a sullen expression, the princess was digging through her bag of gold coins while only consoling herself, telling herself that the photos were obviously either fake or processed because everything was too perfect. With a clink, she pours a handful of gold coins into the guy's hands. But the guy is not very pleased, for she only gave him 18 coins out of 40. The girl replied that he didn't deserve more, so she said she would pay him the rest after the contract was signed. Then her face took on an eerie expression, like that of a maniac stalking his victim. She said, "Now bring him to me." Why lead him? Here he is, right in front of her. By the way, did you even read the details regarding his work? Her boyfriend asked her. The girl replied that she thought as if he was a chef of a famous restaurant. To which the guy added, 9 nights. At first the girl thought it was the name of a bar, as long as it wasn't in the red light district. Probably better to be a chef. But shuddering, the girl asked the guy, "Wait a minute, if he's not interested in girls, does that mean that he's gay?" Gee, a gay chef in the red light district. So he wants to hide his orientation by signing a contract like this? The girl continues to make arguments, becoming increasingly frustrated. If of course these arguments are true. The girl says that this at least explains why a 26-year-old man who works in the Imperial Civil Service, who has his own business, has not yet gotten a wife. A 9 nights, a familiar store name, the girl added. There was an awkward pause between the boy and the girl. Then jumping up from her seat, the girl interjected, "Wait a second, 9 nights. Did you say 9 nights? If he's in charge, it comes out that it's about the guildmaster," said the girl, adding more, "Then it turns out that your boss is Baron Collide." The girl was genuinely surprised and confused. Though considering how she assumed he was gay, it wouldn't change anything anyway. "That's me. I'm Baron Collide," the guy answered her, looking up, holding a smoldering cigar in his hand, which the guy never parted with. Though sizing her up, the girl said, "But your hair isn't black." "Oh well, for the sake of the princess, you can dye your hair, though he doesn't need it." "Why the hell is he Baron Collide and Guildmaster?" The girl thought and sat down at the table, looking intently at the guy in front of her, trying to see something there that maybe she hadn't noticed before. It turns out that the artist who painted the guy's portrait was his subordinate. True to the princess's point, what kind of subordinate would draw a portrait of his boss inaccurately? After coming to terms with all of this, the princess told the guy that perhaps her expectations were exaggerated and she should realize that it could be an ordinary face under the hood. After she said that, the guy slowly removed the hood, revealing his real appearance, as if the veil that separated them was slowly lowering, opening a new chapter of their communication before them. The princess was shocked, she blushed profusely and couldn't believe her eyes. She could only gasp, because in front of her was exactly the same guy she saw in the photos. What she could say for sure was that she was not disappointed with his appearance. The girl only repeated to herself mentally that he was 1,000 times more handsome in person than in the photos, and the artist had rather diminished his appearance than exaggerated it when drawing the guy. Her eyes shone like stars in the night sky. She showered him with compliments and only wondered why he was working as a guildmaster with such appearance. Glowering, the guy answered her, "What else would I do? Take over the world." The girl said. She liked the guy so much that she simply can't take her eyes off of him, practically rubbing the guy to holes with her eyes. Already, the guy replied calmly, taking another puff of his cigar. In fact, yes, he has taken over the world, because he is the head of the Guild of the Nine Knights, and by selling information all over the world, he has thus taken it over. That's what the princess thought, which, of course, cannot disagree. The girl almost faints at this maddening, beautiful face. She asks the guy if it's definitely a sedative and not a hallucinogen that makes other people see other people as beautiful. Then the guy answers her, "Are you asking if I think you're beautiful?" The girl didn't even realize how it happened that the conversation had taken that direction. She fantasized about all sorts of things. The girl covered her face with her thin and delicate hands. What had she imagined in her head that she was so embarrassed? Looking through her fingers, the girl turns to the guy, questioning him and wanting to make sure that it's all real. "Are we really going to make this a contract?" "Oh, I think this princess is broken, bring another one." The guy confirmed it with a nod and added as she said she wouldn't pay him until they had a contract. The princess is over the moon as she will be contracting with such a god of beauty. Standing opposite each other, the princess trying her best to hide her embarrassment, and the guy only asking the girl, "Shouldn't we discuss the details of our contract?" Khalid asked the princess if she was only going to talk to him formally. That's right, they would soon be husband and wife after all, albeit in a sham marriage, but still. To which she replied, "What do you mean?" Embarrassedly pressing her palms to her cheeks, she asked, "Why you like it when I speak plainly, don't you?" Why? It enlivens the conversation, the guy said with a genuine smile on his face that would impress any girl, especially the princess herself. Oh, poor Princess Heart, a new challenge is sent to him with every phrase and smile of Khalid's. Laylan doesn't understand what the guy is asking her anymore. It seems she will agree to anything he tells her. The princess hints to the guy that in Ephron, it's common for married couples to share a bedroom. At least, the girl says they'll have to act like a real couple. Ugh, the princess has definitely been taken in the wrong direction. "We'll sleep together, but no body contact?" Khalid asked the girl. To which she replied that since they wouldn't be married for real, that was fine, wasn't it? The guy clarified that the no body contact rule applies to her as well. I wonder what it would look like if the rule only applied to one of them. Well, yeah, the girl replied as if even with sadness in her voice. Or did it just seem that way? Now the girl mentally berated herself for adding that rule to the contract. No, it didn't seem that way. "Pay me 4 times my initial allowance," the boy said, adjusting his cape with his hand. They hadn't signed anything yet, and he was already demanding so much. That's how power intoxicates. The girl said that he would receive his allowance after the end of his contract, so to ask for such a sum now as compensation was impertinent. The guy said he only wanted the limestone hills on the seashore. The girl wonders why he wants this territory because although there is enough space for apartment development, but at the moment there is nothing special there. But anyway, this land is under the control of the Ephraim family, so no outsider has access there anyway. The princess once again interjected, was he sure that he was sure that was enough for him? After all, otherwise she wouldn't give him any other allowance. And she planned to give him much more than he asked for, so again everything was too perfect to be true. Khalid answered in the affirmative and reminded her that if they were done discussing that contract, they could sign it. The joyful princess holding that contract in her hands, a little more and burst with happiness, her eyes sparkling and a smile on her face. The duration of the contract is 1 year, during which time they will have to reveal to the public the heir of the Ephraim family. In order to finalize the contract, the guy and the girl signed the marriage certificate and the adoption and divorce papers at the same time. In this way they actually married and divorced in 1 day. Holding the documents in her hands, the princess herself does not believe that all this is happening to her. She is happy, she wants to sing, dance, give everyone around her smile. Everything is too perfect. The princess is even surprised that the guy could ask her for many times more because he loves money, but in return, he only needs a piece of unnecessary land. Nothing surprising, because Kalidu may be enough and the princess herself near, and the land is a trifle, but who knows what is in the head of this guy. Bowing to the princess, Khalid said that since they were done with everything, he would leave first. Thinking about it, the princess asks herself, is he really looking for a secluded place because he's gay? But maybe he just needs a place to rest. Before the princess can thank the guy, he interrupts her and says, money. And there goes his love of money. Rummaging with her slender hand in her coin pouch, the princess pulls out from there the missing amount she promised the guy after signing the contract. Smiling at the girl, the guy flips the gold coin. He is satisfied with the deal, everything went smoothly for both her and him.